Good morning, everybody. It's Jillian. So, okay. So I know I made a long time ago, I made the connection that spirituality and emotions and biochemistry were all the same thing said in different words to create context and jargon and separation and create subjectivity. And so that way people don't see the connections and they study things as if they were separate, which is why then it's very easy to sell people into specializations so that way you can charge for a specialized type of education and certification and then sell one aspect of something but not realize everything is connected. Okay. So, the books from way back when, whether it's the Iliad and the Odyssey, the Bible, okay, Iliad, the Odyssey, the Bible, um, every single doctrine that we read from the past, history, even the remakes or the revisions of it, all of that is through the eyes of somebody telling a story, and a story is a perception. Yes, there are facts. There are nouns that are facts. There were people back then. There were natural disasters and weather back then in the past, back in the Iliad and the Odyssey, with Greek mythology, even back in the Bible days. So there was people. There were people that had a specific size. There were giants, but what is a giant? I mean, a giant is still relative to someone's perception. So a giant is a noun, and it's also it could be it's an adjective, and so that way it's not a fact. Giants are not facts, but things were big back then. There were dinosaurs, and the bones show, and there have been bones that showed people that were very, very tall. So, anyways, so all of so there was still very major imbalances. People were still dying back in the biblical days. People were still dying back in the Iliad and the Odyssey days. Okay, those are the two volumes of the book of Greek mythology and all that. Okay, if you don't know what the Iliad and the Odyssey is. I never read them, but I did study Greek mythology in school. I didn't study it too deeply. But the Greek mythology and the gods of like war and the gods of love and the gods of what else? I don't know all the different gods. I only know a few gods. Greek mythology. I should had it all like written out, but not really. Because I'm gonna write about something of it. Will I go deep? I don't know how deep I'll go. Yeah, the Clash of the Titans, That should tell you some of the gods from way back when. And now you could say, were they the Nephilim? Were they the Anunnaki? Were they the Nephilim? Not Anunnaki. Was the Anunnaki, from the alien times? The space invaders that came down and had sex with the daughters of men. I mean, that's some of the stories out there. So yeah, so here's 12 Olympians in Wikipedia. We'll just go to Wikipedia. Just so you're like, ooh, the 12 Olympians and then the 12, different systems. Go figure on that one. So we have, what is it? Zeus, Titans, Cronus, Rhea, Zeus, yeah, Poseidon, Hera, Demeter, Hestia, Athena, Zeus, Athena, Apollo, Artemis, Ares, Aphrodite, Hephaestus, Hermes, Dionysus, Hades. Okay, so all these different gods, when you actually break down what their specialties were, those are all your emotions. And I'm telling you, these emotions are very powerful. Emotions are so powerful that they do move people to do something. Okay? The goddess of love could be, in our day, it could have been, well, back in the 90s, it would have been Pamela Anderson or Anna Nicole Smith. Okay? The goddess of love. Because they were all about love, 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 sex, 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 all this stuff, right? So I could see that if there were people in royalty back then in the Roman Greek days, okay, or the Greek days, and the Pantheon, Mount Olympus, all of that, and there were certain people that represented a very major, major emotion. Because yes, reproduction, even if it's from, the Anunnaki to the daughters of men, and then they created an offspring like Zeus and whoever he had sex with. What is it, Hera or something? Okay, whoever he had sex with, created and reproduction comes from chaos. So then you bear a baby that is this goddess of love. And this is a representation of imbalances out there. So you have the goddess of love, you have Ares, the god of war, or who else would be a god of war? Well, anyways, it doesn't get to, it could go into all of these, but it's not going to 12. Hold on. Oh, here we go. Zeus. Okay. So if you read all the different gods, there's Zeus, the king, and the gods, the ruler. And then there's Hera, queen of the gods, goddess of marriage, women, childbirth, and family. Okay. Poseidon, the god of sea, water, storms, hurricanes, earthquakes. Okay, so they have gods for everything and things like that, plus emotions. All of the energy in the atmosphere has a name. It has a whole story behind it. And what would be the goddess of just, or god of just straight, peace and calm and whatever. And, I don't know if they even have something like that. Because all of these different gods, I'm looking at the god of the seas, Poseidon, hurricanes, all this is about, upset of homeostasis. I mean, here's Zeus, the king. He's of the sky, lightning, thunder, law and order, and justice. Okay, that's part of our body. Hera, childbirth, marriage, women, and family. Okay, there's something that they're promoting. Okay, back in the Greek days. Poseidon, storms, water, sea, earthquakes, and horses. Okay, and the Greek gods, he had many lovers. Okay, Demeter, goddess of harvests, fertility, agriculture, nature, and the seasons. Okay, so that's the opposite of homeostasis. Athena, goddess of wisdom, handicrafts, and warfare. Jeez, okay. So Apollo, the god of the light, the sun, truth, archery. Truth is perception, inspiration, poetry, music. Those are all emotions and strengths that you have based upon imbalances. Healing and the plague. Oh, great. Here you go. So how is Apollo, who is the healing god as well as the plague god? It makes you wonder. And then manly beauty and music and arts. Artemis, goddess of the hunt, the wilderness, virginity, the moon, archery, childbirth, protection, and the plague. My God, these gods were like, holy crap. Then Ares, god of war, violence, bloodshed, manly virtues. Aphrodite, goddess of love, pleasure, passion, procreation. Yeah, that would be like, in the 90s, Pamela Anderson. Okay. Hephaestus or Vulcan, master blacksmith, craftsman of the gods, the forge, craftsmanship, invention, fire, and volcanoes. Hermes, messenger of the gods, god of travel, commerce, communication, borders, eloquence, diplomacy, thieves, and gain. He's also the guide of the dead souls. My Lord. Okay. And then Hestia, goddess of the hearth, fire, and the right ordering, domesticity, and family. So this is what created then obviously, because this is what created the stability of our society based upon the strengths of your emotions. And then these names of these gods are representation of the strengths and weaknesses of your emotion. So that way, this can reinforce the way our society is, and then the diversity in our society. So Dionysus, Bacchus, god of the wine, grape, vine, fertility, festivity, madness, resurrection. Patron, god of the art of theater. Wow. Okay, and so it's like all of these, but so when you put them all together, that makes up a human. So these are all representative of every aspect of yourself. Okay? And it's like, now we need to create a new god of stability, where you're not always tapping into all of this, where you can tap into some of this, but it's not so like where you represent Aphrodite. Like some women represent, and some men will represent themselves as an Aphrodite or a Zeus. Okay? Some women will represent themselves as an Aphrodite or a Zeus-like. Okay? Especially nowadays. And so what if we didn't have to identify? What if we didn't have to identify with any of these gods? And the gods of your emotions is what drives people to do things that would be would be against the law, way out of their comfort zone, because it wouldn't be. I mean, sometimes emotions go so crazy that, yes, I've done some crazy things because of emotions. A lot of us have put ourselves in danger because of emotions. And so what if we didn't have to live by our emotions? And then what if they didn't have to be reinforced and brought to surface all the time? So when you watch TV, all of these emotions of the gods of emotions, they're all being brought to surface. It's all being triggered by whatever is at the surface. And all of you have different emotions and different biochemistries that are at the surface that are waiting to be plucked and triggered. And it's very easy because the fact that, our society promotes death. And when you promote death, those emotions, those fight or flight emotions, which are representative of the gods, are going to be at the surface. And relative to your strengths and your weaknesses, it'll be, it'll, you'll have a specific reaction and a belief system that will keep being reinforced and then passed down from generation to generation to generation. And so I think this is why they promote family and why they promote marriage and domesticity, because they want they want us to keep procreating, filling in those gaps. So when you have 300 million people in America, all of them procreating at different times with different strengths representative of some of these emotions, of gods of emotions, now you have a very diverse society, very diverse. Yes, it will create commerce, but now with this plague, we're seeing that commerce is slowing down. And now, what is the prominent industry? And that is food and shelter. There's a lot of other things that people are not caring about. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the future. But I know with the Jilly Juice, all of these emotions that I see on here, they have calmed down. Like I probably could have identified with Aphrodite at some point. That's calmed down. I know some people really identify themselves really as a very Aphrodite type of person. And that's an identity based upon your biochemistry. What would happen if your biochemistry, the oxytocin that caused you to identify with Aphrodite, calmed down and didn't pump as much of that hormone to where that's what you're living from? What if you actually didn't have to live by that and be suffering from the lack thereof, or suffering from that hormone always at the surface, needing, to be satisfied? So yeah, the Jilly Juice is going to challenge a lot of what was set before us many, many years ago from the Greek mythological days. I mean, we still have government and universities wanting people to bring up the gods within themselves. The god of war. I mean, you could say Trump is the god of war if you want to, because of people's assertions that he's creating division. You could say, the porn industry, the Aphrodite gods. Okay, I mean, if you really break all this down, you could see exactly how our society is made up and what was reinforced. So I don't know. This is really interesting. And seeing these statues, because they're all statues, and people toppling down statues, I don't necessarily disagree with that. Do we have to keep reinforcing the crazy emotions that people are putting out there? Do we have to keep reinforcing that? Or could we create a new future, not keep recreating the past? Okay, so it's nice to see history, but sometimes people will only live in history. And then they keep looping in the same history over and over and over again. So, but the Jilly Juice crowd, there is no statue really. There is no god of something that represents us, because we're now changing the trajectory. We're not living from this emotional death trajectory. Now we're like, wait, hold on. What is going to represent the Jilly Juice world? And I don't even know. If we put them all together, it would be an androgynous being. If you put all these statues together, it would be androgyny. Maybe that's where we're supposed to be. Maybe. androgyny that lives indefinitely. But that's very early. It's very premature. It's too early for a lot of people, even for my Jilly Juice crowd. Okay, because we live around a lot of people, right, Chris? The stability, less hormonal for sure, yeah. But we live around a lot of people who still buy into the hormones, who still buy into the emotions, who still buy into the gods of whatever, who still buy into identifying themselves as one aspect of Greek mythology. And so that's why and that, again, this is another confirmation of why I still have issues with the university, because of what they do. They compartmentalize, and learning Greek mythology is reinforcing people's behaviors that then they have to go and temper with drugs and alcohol and sex and all of that stuff. And so there's got to be a different way to express ourselves without identifying with any one of these emotional gods. And have I figured out yet? Well, I'm learning all the different arguments. I learned how to debate both sides, understand both sides, but I still have my preferences, whatever they are. But I think one of the great exercises of non-futility is to learn all the arguments out there, all the controversies, learn how to take both sides, learn where they're coming from. And if you disagree with somebody or have some visceral gut reaction, you have something that is unresolved. Okay? To where you can listen to an argument, see a person. I mean, I was talking to somebody last night, Isaiah Dunkey, he's a new person on my Facebook. And I was talking about Jilly Juice or something, and somebody on his Facebook was posting the Dr. Phil clips. And they're just like, oh, yeah, she's crazy, she's this. And I'm just like, and he didn't even buy it. He was just like, he's telling this girl, you're posting irrelevant stuff and you're hijacking this thread. So I just went into my YouTube and posted that, about what the industry fails to talk about is the water balancing the salt, and how water actually would be a cure for high blood pressure, and water would not cause dehydration salt would not cause dehydration. Water wouldn't either, because the salt would bring up the antidiuretic hormone. And then I blocked the chick, but I didn't. That's all I did was respond with my YouTube videos. I didn't even say anything to the chick. I just blocked her, and I just gave Isaiah the links and the clicks and whatever, and he can make his own decision. And then I moved on to the next thing. I didn't have this visceral gut reaction. I just saw that, okay, this person is very ill-informed, but I'm not going to convince them because that's their belief system, and I don't really care. Because if somebody is wanting to bully somebody and try to tear them down with videos and links and things that they believe on YouTube, that's their prerogative, and they need to change their mind. They need to look at all the information, not just one side. And I just keep moving on, because it's not my job to convince everyone that doesn't agree with me. And so that's when I know I've pretty much healed. So I understand that girl's point of view, because Dr. Phil comes from the allopathic. They don't mention water as a balancing force. They don't mention anything about balance in any of the articles out there around salt. They just assume everyone's not drinking water. Well, you can't assume that. If somebody has some kind of reaction from salt, from too much salt, you would think they would naturally say, well, if you have high blood pressure, drink some water. If salt gives you high blood pressure, drink some water. That would be the easiest thing that any medical, WebMD, whatever, would help out their readers. But no, they don't mention water. The reason why is because they want you to keep drinking your sodas. Processed food is not bad. Processed food actually breaks down the food for you, so that way you don't have to process it yourself at the level that you have to when it comes to whole food. When somebody who has a leaky gut and all the different stagnations in their systems and they're eating whole foods, they don't have the ability to process that food down to the micro level. So that food goes to waste. It's wasted energy. So it's kind of ironic that the holistic industry says, oh, we hate processed food, which actually the processed food industry is better for them when they have leaky gut and all this other crap. And then what happened is then they need to bring in the J juice to then help balance out and get rid of any excess minerals, excess microbiome, and then be able to have it distribute to the right places. So that way there's no overaccumulation. And then you don't have imbalances in your emotions. So you're not the god or goddess of love. So you're not the god or goddess of war. So you're not the god or goddess of family and fertility and procreation. Okay? Which is all the same thing. And you'll see a calming down in your hormones. But no, the holistic industry is like just one aspect of the allopathic. And they don't take into account that you have to heal and seal first before you're able to break stuff down and hold on to and maximize nutritional benefit. So I know, where that chick's coming from with the Dr. Phil, because Dr. Phil's been trained by the system to compartmentalize. So I understand. So it doesn't give me a visceral gut reaction. I just fight back with my own links. Here's a few videos. One's a 7-minute video. The other one's, a bit longer. And that's it. And then I have books. The books are not entertaining. I have one book. This is how skinny. This is what will keep humanity alive. You know how skinny this is compared to John Hopkins? You know how skinny this is compared to a naturopathic herbal medicine? I have an herbal medicine book that is so thick that I got way back when I was in the holistic world. And then guess what? The Jilly Juice is this thin. Because it doesn't take much to keep a human alive. But it takes a lot to destroy a human at the cellular level systematically over time. Oh, it takes a lot, and then it takes a lot of stories and justification. And then, and then I don't know, all the different people, all the different foundations that are involved. It's a freaking business. And then Jilly Juice is this. Jilly Juice is not a business. Jilly Juice is just, here is what keeps you alive. But you have to understand pain. You have to understand that you're dealing with a system that makes a shit ton of money off all of your kids and your body parts and your emotions and all the different theories and belief systems out there. All the different gurus out there that are plucking your hormones, and then you're feeling great or you're feeling horrible, and they give you a solution to feel great, another drug, another this, another that. And then people have their identities based upon their hormones are at the surface at the time. What would happen if your hormones actually calm down and you don't have any identity because you haven't created a new one? Because you didn't know that you didn't have to be this one identity. You didn't have to be the god of love or the goddess of love. You didn't have to be the goddess of war or the god of war. What would happen if your hormones were so calmed down that now you have to go and refigure out who you are as a person? And it's not based upon your hormones. It's based upon something of a higher purpose than your baser level instincts. And so the Greek mythology is about baser level instincts. That is the narrowing down of Greek mythology. Thank you, Jillian. Thank you guys for letting me just put this out here and bounce off. But Greek mythology is baser level instincts and how they promote that and how they perpetuate that and sustain that. And that's why it is the promotion of families, the promotion of fertility, the porn industry. I have to say it, but yes, it's all about tapping into baser level instincts. So that way you're not reaching to your higher purpose, because you all have a higher purpose, but it's been clouded by your emotions and by your hormones. Because everyone out there that's not doing the Jilly Juice is on a death trajectory. And so a lot of emotions, a lot of hormones come up when a person is dying. A lot. The body is trying to survive, and humanity, human race is trying to survive. So yes, procreation comes into play, reproduction comes into play, regardless if that's your intent. Fight comes into play. Criminal behavior comes into play. When abuse comes into play. I mean, I watched the movie Athlete A about the gymnasts that are being MK Ultra'd by Bella Caroli and Larry Nassar. And the conspiracy world, which is correct, they were right that the Olympics are fraught with mind control and sexual abuse and child abuse. And I try to say that to somebody on my Facebook, that the Olympics were full of these types of methodologies they do to their gymnasts to get them to perform. And they're like, oh my God, they were just totally incensed. And then guess what? Athlete A just confirmed all the conspiracies out there as far as the Olympics really abusing their trainer or their athletes, and they get them when they're young, when they're children. And so yes, our society is predicated on really, and that's why children are the first victims in our society. When you're a child, you are a victim. You will be a victim as a child. It will be across the board. I don't care who you are. I don't care how great of a parent you think you are. Your children were victims of how you parented at some point in time. Now, you have obviously the chance to correct whatever it is and be a better parent or do things differently and teach your child in a different way. But yes, children will always be a victim because it's like because children come from chaos. It's reproduction. Reproduction comes from chaos. And then you're trying to have someone who hasn't fully figured out themselves try to apply the order to that chaos. Okay? So what if we didn't have to die and reproduce or feel we have to reproduce and we just have peaceful people living indefinitely, not tapping into their hormones on a constant basis? What would our society look like? It won't be as diverse. Yes, you won't have as much, agencies. You won't have the psychology agency, the psychiatry. You won't have CPS. You won't have family services. You won't have Planned Parenthood. You won't have the food banks out there. You wouldn't have half of the social programs out there, or all of them. You wouldn't have any of them. Okay, our whole society is predicated on imbalances in our society. It's predicated upon reproduction and death. You wouldn't have the funeral homes. You wouldn't have life insurance. You wouldn't have all the different things that have to do with somebody, dying and reproducing and all the points in between. The oncology, the medical, the holistic. I mean, I'm telling you, if you look out into your commerce area, half the stuff wouldn't be there if it wasn't for people dying and reproducing. Okay? So that's what I'm introducing is what if we had people, places and things that weren't predicated upon the imbalances of their hormones that contribute to the justice system, the legislative system. That's why we have 3 branches of government, because we have imbalanced people. It's called the balance of power. Why do you need the balance of power? Because you have imbalances in your body, mind, and spirit, in politics, religion, and science. All of that. So the balance of power makes sense. It's right there. It's confirmed. You're trying to balance out your biochemistry. Then we have people who represent different aspects of your biochemistry, and they're all conglomerated into political parties. So that's why you have the 2 sides, the Republicans and Democrats, then the independents that pretend that they're nothing, but they're really left wing. I'm glad I left that relationship. This guy was like one of the leaders in the Communist Party in San Francisco. I left that a long time ago. So, now I'm married to someone that's pretty right wing, but not totally right wing. So whatever. But those are the 2 spans you deal with in our society, is someone that's way left or way right. Rarely do you get anybody in middle ground. But what would happen if everybody on Jilly Juice represented a middle ground? That's what I know that Jilly Juice is really going to make a difference, is when I see the people that are doing Jilly Juice, they're now taking a middle road. They know the arguments on both sides. Their preferences are mostly self-sufficient, mostly independent, but we know that we have to have, if we want to have a running infrastructure, we need other people. So there's a balance of government and a balance of individual rights and individual self-sufficiency, and knowing when to make a ruckus over something and knowing when to just kind of pull back. And so that's what I hope for Jilly Juice people, is they learn how to balance it all, learn all the arguments, so that way they can take both sides and then substantiate their position, where it still isn't going to disenfranchise anybody, because you're making a personal choice that's not going to affect anyone but you. This whole thing with the masks, I don't agree with wearing it because I won't wear one, but I also am not going to go outside as much. I'm not. Yeah, I know, Jess. Okay, so how I offset that my belief system of not wearing a mask is I only go to the grocery store and maybe to a friend's house, because our friends, we've been hanging out for a while and I just can't not see them with my husband. So, that's pretty much it. I don't go to restaurants and sit. I don't go out and picket. I don't go out and protest. I don't purposely go and visit people. Okay, I mean, it's like, it, so I'm able to substantiate my belief system and know that it does take it does take my restraint, and it does take knowing the arguments and understanding people's positions. I get it. You know, if you're a weak person, you're at the grocery store and you want me to wear a mask. Well, I'm sorry, you can't legislate. If you're that weak where you can't even go to a grocery store without feeling like you're going to die from somebody at the grocery store, then go bring in somebody to do your shopping for you. If you're that scared, okay. But I still understand. So if you know, so how do we mitigate the pandemic? Everyone stays at home for the most part and only goes out when they need to. And you know, a lot of people going out when they need to. Yeah, it looks like everyone's going out, but not necessarily. So that's why they close everything down. But whatever. But I still won't wear a mask. So, but that's the beauty of Jilly Juice is understanding balance. So even though Jess says yes, Jason's right wing, it can be pretty extreme. It can be pretty extreme. You got to learn to have the balance in between. You've got to understand both sides. If you don't understand both sides, then how can you be objective? Then you're still exemplifying subjectivity. Okay? I mean, that's just kind of, I don't know. That's the point of J-Juice, is objectivity as much as you can. But we are subjective about life. So that's another thing is that if we're not going to be identifying and promoting baser instincts, then by nature, then it's about indefinite life, and then the laws of life, and then the laws of death, understanding both, differentiating, and adhering to the laws of life. And that's what this book is about. This is the laws of life, and then you understand the laws of death. The laws of death in here are the antibiotics. The laws of death here is applying antibiotics to a microbiome that is probiotic. Okay? And so, you know, this is doesn't even scratch the surface for the John Hopkins, because there's no death process in here. Okay? There's no justification to die, no destroying the microbiome to get a particular result. This is just straight life. And life, it doesn't take much to live, but people make it very difficult. But yes, no mask. That's right. So anyways, that's all I'm going to say right now. But I figured Michael Inman mentioned the Greek mythology, and I hadn't really had a term for Greek mythology until I did the Facebook Live. And yeah, it's representation of baser instincts. And so if you identify with any of these gods, you are still tapping into your baser instincts. So what if you were all of these gods all together and none was overshadowing the other? Then it would be androgyny. It would be androgyny and indefinite life. That's something that was going to be very interesting to see. We'll see. All right. Bye.